There's been one very dominant piece of information going around ever since the PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series X consoles launched, which is the comparisons between the two on pretty much every single game coming out. Now, we all know that would happen because it's what's happened for years. People love to know what version is best and what console has the better gameplay. Yet I always thought that launch titles were a little weird to compare because the developers that made those games didn't have every single variable in the equation when it comes to next generation consoles. What I mean by that is they don't have all the tools necessary to get the best out of each console. For instance, right now, PlayStation 5 is getting some performance boosts in other areas the Xbox Series X isn't. Then the Xbox has some other boosted performances that the PS5 just doesn't have. Overall, it's a mixed bag, and of course, if you know anything about technology and how it's optimized, this is a normal occurrence. Which brings me to an interview that Jim Ryan had where he talks about the next generation of games, not to mention the current generation of the PS4. Usually Jim Ryan doesn't have a lot of statements, instead he kind of lets the console and the games do the talking for him. Yet over the last several months, he's had a couple of statements and even some bad statements when it comes to the PS5. One of those statements a lot of people criticized was the fact they'll continue to support the PS4 console with their first-party exclusives that will release in the next several years. And to a lot of people's surprise, they started to question if this will hold back game design and not give people the true next-generation experience they expect it to have. Not to mention there's always the competition between the Xbox Series X and the PlayStation 5 that will last till the end of time, it would seem. So it's very telling when someone like Phil Spencer or Jim Ryan talk about the next generation consoles and the power attached to them. But more importantly, when they talk about the game development and when the power of the console will be utilized to their full potential, which is exactly what Jim Ryan talks about, because he not only talks about the PS5 and the PS4 connection, but this also shines light on other aspects of the generation that Phil Spencer has talked about. So let's get into this article and this interview because it does help us gamers understand the timeline of when we'll see true next generation experience games. The games that Jim Ryan says developers will finally start to hit their strides in. So let's get into it. But first, like always, if you like the video, hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support is greatly appreciated. So let's get into this interview with Jim Ryan, who, if you remember, is the new executive at the top of Sony's PlayStation division. Now, I know for a couple of months he said some things that got a lot of PlayStation 5 fans pretty angry, mostly some broken promises that he backtracked on. Things like, "We believe in true generations," yet he later said they'll support the PS4 for years to come because of the massive player base there. A lot of what was said seems to be a little out of place when it comes to Sony and their history, because for years gamers have always treated a new console as just that, a console that can play certain games, and you have to buy the new piece of hardware to play those games. Yet now with the architecture of the software attached to the console's hardware, we are seeing cross-generational games be the norm, which is what the article starts off by saying here. The PlayStation 5 has officially launched in all regions of the world, but it may be a while before truly transformational next-gen experiences arrive. Sony Interactive Entertainment CEO Jim Ryan famously stated that the company believes in generations, but a number of PS5 blockbusters including Spider-Man Miles Morales, Horizon Forbidden West, and possibly God of War Ragnarok are cross-gen titles, and other Sony execs have hinted PS4 support will continue for at least another 3 years. Jim Ryan reiterated this idea in a new interview with Russian news agency TASS. Let's stop right there because there's a lot to unpack in this single paragraph, especially when it comes to the PS5 and the Xbox Series X generations. Now, I've talked before about the Xbox Series X supporting the Xbox One console for about a year or two. A lot of people didn't like when Phil Spencer or Matt Booty of Xbox mentioned that they would support the Xbox One consoles because there's a player base there they want to tap into. And why wouldn't they? And when that was announced, Jim Ryan famously said, "We believe in generations." So everyone figured that the PlayStation 5 launch games would be exclusive to the PS5 console, and that the people on the PS4 console would be left out. Well, as we can see, that's just not the case, and Jim Ryan went back on his word. And not just for launch titles, but for games coming years down the line. Like the article mentioned, Horizon Forbidden West, and of course, God of War Ragnarok. Now, as a gamer and a consumer, I had a feeling Sony would do something like this. Because to just abandon 100 million people on a PS4 is just not smart from a business standpoint. And that's something that Jim Ryan mentions when he brings that up. There are around 114 million PS4s in the world. The number of those who transfer to PS5 initially, if you keep that in mind, is a small number. But for us, the PS4 community is going to remain incredibly important, certainly for 2020, 2021, and 2022, because in those 3 years, that will be the larger PlayStation community. So like I've said over and over on this channel, the main reason Xbox and Sony are making consoles is to make money. They create games to make money. They invest in studios, talent, ideas, hardware, software, subscription services for one reason: to get our hard-earned money to go into their ecosystem. Now, of course, both Xbox and Sony have to make great games in order for them to get that money, but if you think that Sony is going to make a massive AAA game that costs tens of millions of dollars just to be sold on one platform with maybe 6 to 10 million people on it, you are sorely mistaken, because they already laid the groundwork with the PS4, so a lot of their games are going to come to that console and at the end of the day be cross-generation. Yet what does that mean for true next-generation games? Because game design is going to be changed due to the fact developers have to make games for lesser piece of hardware from last generation, and it's something that the article brings up. So if cross-gen is going to be a reality of life for some time to come, when are those real next-gen PS5 experiences going to arrive? Stuff that wouldn't even be imaginable on PS4. According to Ryan, they aren't coming this year or even next year. 2022 is when the PS5's power will be truly tapped. Here's what Jim Ryan had to say specifically about this question. History will tell you that it's in the second or third year that the developers really hit their stride. Developers typically need a little bit of time to familiarize themselves with the hardware, but it's probably 2022 that you're going to see some wonderful things in the same way that it was 2015 or 2016 for the previous generation, when the generation-defining games started to be published. Wow, this sounds very familiar. It's as if this was what Xbox's Phil Spencer, along with a lot of other developers around the gaming world, have been saying, that the power in the Xbox Series X and the PS5 won't be utilized until a few years down the line. And to be honest, what Jim Ryan is saying here is an indication of both consoles, because he doesn't just say the PS5, he says the generation and the hardware. Is he mainly talking about the PS5 console? Of course, but this is the same thing for the Xbox Series X. It's why all of these people yelling from the rooftops about certain games running better on the PS5 and some games running better on the Xbox Series X are just pointless. It's why these comparisons by people aren't to define which console is better long term, it's to show which tools and features are being utilized, and it's a way for developers to see what's being optimized correctly and what they can clean up. That's why games like Assassin's Creed Valhalla, which is currently the biggest game out right now for both consoles, is being dissected by every single gamer on both consoles so they can see which one is performing the best. Not realizing that this isn't going to be the norm. As we get further and further into the generation, we will start to get games that truly define the generation. Games like Assassin's Creed Origins, which really pushed the Xbox One X console to new heights. Games like Red Dead Redemption 2, which was a technological marvel. And of course games like God of War and Spider-Man, which will turn the gaming world upside down. These types of games weren't possible when the Xbox One and PS4 first launched, because the tools and the new software being developed at the time was at its infancy. It's the same thing going on right now with the PS5 and of course the Xbox Series X. And if we remember, this happened when the Xbox One X and the PS4 Pro launched. Developers needed time with the new consoles and they were able to get more out of them as time went on. But what's different now is that we are truly going into a completely new console generation, and it's going to take even more time for developers to wrap their brains around this new hardware and, more importantly, the software being developed for it. So what Jim Ryan is saying here is true, and it also echoes what Xbox has been saying for months now, that these consoles will have games showing off the power. It will just take some time for everything to finally be worked out by the developers. So don't be surprised if massive games like God of War or Horizon 2 will be on the PS4. But that doesn't mean we won't get exclusive games for the PS5 or the Xbox Series X, which the article mentions here. Again, this doesn't mean there won't be PS5 exclusives before then. We already have two big ones in Demon's Souls and the upcoming Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart. But it seems the real mind-blowing stuff with the fidelity of that amazing Unreal Engine 5 PS5 demo is still some ways away. So to close this video out, I wanted to point out that even the exclusive games like Demon's Souls won't be pushing the console to its max. I say that because the tools and features on the PS5 just aren't ready for that. Plus, they haven't been optimized over time to actually take advantage of the hardware. Games like Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart is one of the games I've truly seen that looks next generation. Yet again, it's still nothing to what we're going to see in a few years. All of this makes both the Xbox Series X and the PS5 consoles look like huge leaps in power, because while Sony has a few exclusive PS5 games coming out, they haven't announced as many next-gen exclusive games like Microsoft has. During the July and May event, Xbox announced multiple Xbox Series X only games. Games like Fable, Avowed, State of Decay 3, Ascent, The Medium, and others had the Xbox Series X logo only on their announcement trailer. But mostly it shows that a lot of these comparisons going around isn't going to truly show off the power of these consoles. And that's exactly what Jim Ryan is saying here. He's talking about the launch games being great games, but just don't push the hardware. And that the games that we see from third and first party developers are going to truly give us next generation experiences in about 2 or 3 years. That's when the consoles will be in developers' hands for a long period of time, so they'll be familiar with the tools provided, but more importantly to the Xbox and Sony, the consoles will be in so many more people's homes. They'll have tens of millions of PS5s and Series X consoles out in the wild, which will help them sell more copies of games, and that's exactly what they want. We want the Xbox and the PS5 to sell more games so they can continue to make even more games. So let's all relax with the comparisons and let's be patient with the consoles, because right now all of these graphical hitches are just the starting pains of a new generation. And from the looks of it, this generation is going to be pretty massive when it's all said and done. But enough of what I think about all of this. Tell me what you think about all of this. Do you agree with what Jim Ryan had to say? Are you happy with the cross-generational strategy? Are you mad at Sony for saying they believe in generations? Do you wish they left the old consoles behind? What console are you currently playing on? Is this truly a next generation leap? Go down below and let me know. And I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, please hit that subscribe button and that like button. The support helps out the channel more than you know. And give me a follow on Twitter at Zalker87. I'm always on there talking games and sharing my latest videos. Plus, I love interacting with everyone there, so get on Twitter and let's talk about gaming. Also, follow me on Xbox Live. My gamertag is Zalker87, just like my channel name. See what games I'm playing, and let's compete in achievements for the month. Right now, I just got my PS5 and I just got my Xbox Series X, so I'm diving in every single game. I'm currently first playing Miles Morales because I got the PS5 first, and I'm just having a great time. I have to give a shout out to Pixels and Polygons. I tagged him in a post on Twitter. Go like that post. Give this guy as much support as you can. He actually sent me a PS5 because he just wanted to help out. He's such a great guy. I've talked to him in DMs, and honestly, it's humbling to know that people that watch this channel actually want to help me out in getting a PS5. I was struggling. I was going out every morning to Target or any other store early in the morning to get one, and I just couldn't do it. With work and everything going on, I just wasn't there in time. But he helped me out a lot, and honestly, there's nothing I can do to thank him except for giving him a shout out anytime I can. So go give him a like on Twitter, go follow him on Twitter. Great guy, and I'm just happy I get to play all these games. Then I'm jumping into Assassin's Creed Valhalla because I've been waiting so long to play that game, and I'm so excited. I miss Assassin's Creed games, and I'm going to be jumping into that once I'm done with Miles Morales, or I might play them at the same time. So the footage I have right now is what I recorded over the weekend. You can see all of it, and so I'm just happy I'm finally in the next generation. But go down below, let me know what you're playing. Are you playing on your new consoles? Are you playing Spider-Man? Are you playing Assassin's Creed? Let me know down below because I truly want to know what everybody's playing. And that's all for now. Thanks for watching, and until next time, remember, enjoy your gaming. Later.